My name is Nathan Bentley. I'm the Executive Director of Bentleyville Tour of Lights, and on behalf of Bentleyville, the Board of Directors, our staff, and our volunteers, we'd like to officially announce that Bentleyville 2020 will be happening this year with some major changes. To start off with, I first want to thank, before I even go into details, I want to thank Emily Larson and her staff that has worked diligently with us. Several meetings, lots of phone calls, and lots of different things to try to take a bad situation of this year and make something great happen. So I want to first thank Emily very much for that. I appreciate some of your staff has just been phenomenal. They really have.
Yeah.
This is not going to be a perfect scenario as far as how Bentleyville is going to be run, but it's taking the challenging situation in our lives today and trying to make the best out of it. We made the decision of the Bentleyville board to offer something rather than nothing at all. And that's when the idea came to pass of doing the first ever Bentleyville drive-through. What changes are different during a pandemic for Bentleyville? Everything is going to be different this year for us. Starting with, as I mentioned, the drive-through. We will be building a temporary roadway through Bayfront Park, which I'll get into some details with some hard matting. The few tunnels that we are going to be put up are going to be 11 feet tall, 14 feet wide, allowing for cars to go through. We're going to be rerouting all of our traffic from the deck parking lot. All traffic from the freeway and the downtown will be directed into the deck parking lot, making their way into Bayfront Park, making a new entrance for Bentleyville. With the COVID-19 situation, we'll not have our on-site Bentleyville gift shop, which honestly goes to pay for a large portion of what Bentleyville has always been able to do for free. So what we're doing is we're taking over the sports garden in Canal Park. So we'll have nearly a 10,000 square foot facility to offer social distancing for our guests that want to take away some tradition of Bentleyville. So we'll be taking over the sports garden in mid-November for our Bentleyville store. This year coming through, there will not be the $5 parking that there has been. Actually, there's going to be a $10 charge to come through the drive-through. And I'll explain more on that here as I go on to what's going to stay the same.
Whoa, that's not a sign of anything.
Some of the things that are going to stay the same is our traditions. The Bentleyville 128-foot tree will continue to go up. It's actually tentatively scheduled for October 10th, but we'll send out a notice for any of the press that wants to watch that go up. We're still going to put up our nearly 5 million lights that are spread out throughout the park. Children that are 10 and under that are in the vehicle as they drive through will continue to get their annual Bentleyville hat and their bag of cookies from Santa Claus using social distancing procedures. We're still going to collect food and toys for the Salvation Army, as this year is probably more important than ever that the public comes forward and donates what they can for the Salvation Army, which goes to 7 different locations throughout northeastern Minnesota and Wisconsin. Mrs. Claus and Santa Claus will still be here on the grounds. They're actually going to be down, they're going to have a new home together down at the pavilion area where they'll social distance, greeting, waving to the guests as they come through. Our costume characters will also be throughout the grounds. They're also going to be over in the queuing area at the deck parking lot, so people will see a lot of costume characters interacting safely and at a distance from the cars. They'll also experience the same Bentleyville music that they always have. They'll actually turn their radio to a particular radio station as they're entering the park and hearing all the Bentleyville music that they always have listened to, especially passing the 128-foot tree as it's dancing, and still be able to have that ambiance of the music and stuff. They'll still see some fire pits for ambiance reasons throughout the park to try and still give it that feeling, and if you roll down your window at least a half inch, you can still smell the smoke, which people love to know that they were at Bentleyville. With one of those changes, as I mentioned, about the $10 charge to go through Bentleyville, we'd like to explain why. One, we will not, as I mentioned before, we will not be collecting the $5 parking, which is a large portion of our revenue. We will not have convenient walk-up donation boxes on the grounds, and all these are, we will not. So we will not have those two ways of fundraising money. Our corporate sponsors that we've already spoken to will not be anywhere near the levels of sponsorship that's helped keep this event free for all these years. When our gift shop is taken off the grounds here, there will be no reason for people to be impulsively buying hats and mittens and all those things as they start to walk through, which is also a large portion of our revenue that comes in to keep this nearly $500,000 project free. Our fifth major reason is back in April when we knew nothing was going on. We didn't know if there'd be a Bentleyville of any sort whatsoever. We downscaled our big candy bar sale that we do every year, our big golden ticket, which will be happening, but we actually cut it down in half. The number of locations, the number of bars, the number of everything. So the amount of revenue that we're able to bring in to keep this event free will not be happening as it has in the past, and that is the reason for the $10 charge this year. It is fully 100% our purpose to bring it back to the free event next year. As long as we're doing the walkthrough again, we can bring it back to that state. And that's what Bentleyville's always been known for, is having a free event for everyone to come through. But in the circumstances that we're in right now, we need to be viable next year as well. And give you some highlights, because I know sometimes the media likes to know numbers and stuff. To put in this temporary roadway here, we're looking at between $25,000 and $30,000 in here. So we might not be spending the money on hot chocolate, but we're going to be spending money on a roadway. Our other expenses don't change. Our aerial lift expenses don't change. Our insurances don't change. None of our other expenses change. Our decorations and everything else. So that's where we're at. What I like to do is I'll pause for a few minutes or for a moment, introduce Mayor Larson, let us say a few words, then I'm happy to answer additional questions after Mayor Larson and Anna Tansky speak.
Great.
So thank you again, though.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Nathan. It is always a treat to work with you, actually. Thank you for your vision. Thanks for choosing Duluth for this vision initially years ago, and then thank you for you and your board for working the problem, which is what COVID-19 has provided lots of opportunities to work the problem, and this solution is really a good one for this community. So I am excited that some of the tradition that people have really come to rely on with their families, getting out for a night, getting to see some lights, just experiencing downtown Duluth and Canal Park in the winter, it is magical, it is really fun, and we still get to provide that experience this year. So I'm really happy about that. This is not an easy landing point. It took a lot of work on the part of our staff. Thank you, City of Duluth staff and Nathan Bentley and the Bentleyville board. You know, this is a really good example of multiple people coming together with the best and highest purpose in mind, which is how do we continue to provide some joy and opportunity for families and people to have special time this winter when so much is feeling disrupted and thrown off and pulled out from under us. We still have this light experience, and it's something that we know people love to visit from other places to come and see this. It's a fun day trip for people who are coming from the Iron Range or from the Twin Cities market to be able to come out, go walk the beach. Actually, a lot of people love to do that. They come up, they walk the beach, and then when the lights get dark, they come here and take this event in. So really big thanks to Bentleyville, big thanks to the people who have put this plan together. I do assure you that we have, you know, one of my first questions that I had was about this road. This is a really, really special park, and in the summer, in a non-COVID summer, in a non-pandemic summer, this park is fully activated, and it is filled with festival and things that we need the grounds to be in very, very good shape for. So these were all the questions that I had, that our team had. Does this plan work and make sure that concerts and festivals can go on? We need to protect this public asset. This plan does that. That was a big concern also of the Bentleyville board and Nathan Bentley. So we are all aligned. We want this opportunity to continue. We want people to find joy. We think that while there is a cover price, I actually don't think that's the story. I think the story is...
That's not the story.
I don't think it is.
That's not the story.
There are, and we will figure...
Be upfront about it.
Yes. Well, we will figure out ways to help people who want to have this experience, for whom the $10 is a hardship. And there are families for whom that is the case, and we will talk about that and we will work through that. And I know that this community steps up to be generous every time that we ask. I think the big story is that we have reprogrammed this very special experience to make it work and to provide some kind of consistent joy for people when things are so just different. Things are just feeling so different for people, and we're really happy about this plan. So thank you, Nathan. Thank you to the board. Anna Tansky is with Visit Duluth, and she's going to say a few words, and then Nathan, you're going to come back and
any questions?
that is our plan. Okay.
Yes, it is, but any questions for the mayor before she has to run? Because
Oh, I do have to. Yeah, I do.
keeping her on schedule.
That's right. That's right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Well, thanks, everyone. This is just a tremendous opportunity for us to say thank you to the mayor, the city, and to Nathan Bentley for our really something really joyful and exciting for us to celebrate in the visitor economy. And as many of you know, it has been a major headline how the hospitality and tourism industry has struggled mightily during COVID. And we've seen, some bright spots on the horizon, and this is definitely going to be what all of us are looking forward to as we head into some really challenging months ahead. And of course, the uncertainty that will bring. And when we have an event that has been so well thought out and an experience that so many have come to rely on as part of their holiday tradition, I can't emphasize enough, beyond the economic activity that this generates within our community, which is over $20 million every year, we do anticipate that will look different this year because of how we had to adapt. And again, though, it goes beyond just the dollars. This event puts Duluth on the national spotlight for media coverage and exposure. It creates family experiences across all of the United States from people who choose to come here and spend time in our community, as well as our local residents who get to benefit from an amenity that we really could have seen possibly go away with all of the challenges that we were facing. So from within the visitor economy, we see so much more than just the dollars, as well as the charitable contributions that this brings in a time of great need, probably greater than we've seen in many, many years. So I think it really complements the efforts that Visit Duluth brings. We will market this event, even as the headlines share our struggles with funding and resources. We have a plan in place. And so with our partnership at Bentleyville, we will be working to make sure this event is promoted primarily in the Twin Cities through outdoor digital and billboards, as well as through social media channels and digital platforms that we already had in place at the beginning of the year through year-long marketing contracts. We paused our marketing efforts during the peak of COVID, and when we restarted those initiatives in June, that gave us the ability to stretch all the way through the end of the year with those buys. So we are in a position, well positioned actually, to ensure that the word gets out and to really make sure that we have as many visitors here to maximize this experience at a time that is really critical for the visitor economy and the hospitality and tourism industry. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Nathan because we can talk more about the benefits to the community, but the logistics are really critical right now. And
the partnership you guys we've had with you for so many years. It's really good.
It is.
Really good.
And it's we just can't say enough to have something like this to promote is a gift. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Questions about any of the roadway or how people are actually going to travel into here, or do you want me to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, that'd be good. Can you also tell us how much this this hardwood path? I mean, how long is this thing?
I'll use this. We've actually got two. What I'll do is I'll bring this up here, give you a better idea. Without going into huge detail, the traffic is going to go into the deck main parking lot off of Railroad Street like they would go to any other event. The deck will be managed by all of our Bentleyville people. The deck will not be taking care of anything in there. We're going to simply be using the property. So once the cars are in there, they'll be queued up in there. A couple things will happen. One, we'll collect any food and toys that they have going on in there. We'll find out how many children they have in their car. If they have hypothetically 3 children in their car 10 and under, a blue ticket will be put on their windshield, a blue little card. So when they get to the area that their Santa Claus gives out their hat, we already know that that car gets 3 hats or 6 hats if they're a red color or whatever the colors are. From there, they'll be queued up. They'll be advised to turn on their radio to a particular frequency. Then this is the deck right over here. They're actually going to just come out the double gates on 5th Avenue West and come in here on the 5th Avenue West entrance to Bayfront Park. That is where the beginning of the laminated 3-ply hardwood will be starting to be placed down. And this hardwood is they're 12-foot by 8-foot sections of hardwood that some people are probably known to see it at construction sites, during the pipeline building, and things like that. So anywhere in the park here that there's cobblestone or parts of the park that were only strictly built for walking or bicycles, is where we're putting the 3-ply hardwood down. So you're coming on 5th Avenue West, you'll take a left and go parallel to the Great Lakes Aquarium. From there, you'll end up down here in the corner where you'll take a right, come down here to where the pavilion is at, where Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus will be, and that's where the children will be able to, the parents will be able to stop their vehicle, and our elves will then hand out the hats and the cookies to the children, watching all the ambiance of all the lights and the tree and everything going on. They will, the laminated 3-ply hardwood will then continue past the pavilion to the Blacktop Road right at Pier B, which will then stop there because that road was built for traffic and semis. The cars will then be exited up through the parking lot here and hopefully encouraged to head over to Canal Park in the business district, hoping to go over to our new temporary Canal Park Sports Garden Bentleyville store. Is what we're going to hopefully just encourage people to go to, as we certainly need them to spend some money there.
Is Grandma's providing that space to you folks, or are you having to lease it?
We are leasing that from them.
Nathan, will there be a spot for people to take pictures? I know you probably don't want people to get out of their vehicles, but everyone's got their, picture moments.
Right now, I'm going to say no, but I can say it's a conversation within the organization and within planning. We've been wanting to have the press release to be able to get out a lot of information, but we don't have every fine detail worked out. We've got more of the bigger, broader picture of how it's going to operate. We'll be moving into the park here on the week of the 21st, and over the next 2 weeks, every day there's constant meetings with different people and different entities on how we're going to work different things. So right now I'm going to say no. If there's a way that we can, there's been discussions, can we pull cars over at a certain place and let them take pictures? We're throwing ideas out, but right now it's no.
What about volunteers?
Go ahead.
Volunteers, do you still want help setting up?
We're going to be announcing that on our Facebook and our Facebook and our website, because we need to follow all the COVID safety procedures down here, and how we feed our volunteers, our staff, and everything. And we're still working through those things. So we don't know if we're actually going to be reaching out to the general public as much as reaching out to our key volunteers that have been here for all these years, and how we're going to deal with that. We actually did contact someone that's working with us on a COVID plan that we will present to the city for a final approval on how we deal with everything down here during setup, and then we'll have a second COVID plan on dealing with when the general public is here. So I can assure the public that everything is going to be all within the COVID guidelines with what's required by the City of Duluth and the state of Minnesota.
Okay, this seems like an extensive plan and well thought out. Like, what challenges did you face trying to make this happen, and at what point did you become confident that this would work?
Well, I can say that we've worked with the city engineering, State of Minnesota Department of Transportation, Parks and Rec, City Administration, Duluth Police Department, State Highway Patrol. This is actually the fourth plan that we settled on coming into the park different ways. How do we get these cars off the freeway? And not to say the cars aren't going to back up, because that's part of Bentleyville, actually. That's a joke. Well, the cars are backed up on the freeway. But how do we minimize traffic congestion? So I can tell you, this is literally the fourth plan. We've had many different plans and different scenarios, and we've met numerous times with the police department and the city people, and we feel this is the best plan with the area that we're in, and the best plan that we've got at this time. Not to say that we're 2 days into it and we decide that we have to switch gears and all of a sudden redirect the traffic, and we're ready to do that. The city knows that too, and the police department. If our plan A doesn't work, then we will switch gears.
Okay, you mentioned that earlier that you wanted to offer something. Tell me why it's so important that you wanted to make sure that this community was given this opportunity to live in.
You know, Bentleyville has been a tradition for some people for the last 17 years, going all the way back to my home on Crosby Road, where I still live today, and it's been their traditions. They were there when they were teenagers, they've been married, they have children, and it's their traditions for them. And it's important for our board. Our board was, how do we make this happen? So we took some of our people from our operations committee, some people from our executive board, put them together, contacting people, our contacts within the city, and say, how can we make this work? We did honestly look at other sites other than Bayfront Park. We did look at other places, and I can't stress, we looked at so many different scenarios in here. Many scenarios.
Okay, but from an emotional standpoint, tell me why it's so important to allow these people to still enjoy that tradition as you mentioned.
For me, it's pretty much all I've known the last 17 years. It's important to me that we continue to give back. Sometimes you let things drop off for a year or something. Sometimes that breaks up those traditions and things. It's just important to me. I think it's important to our board. It's important to the whole community. The support that we get from the community, from our sponsors over the years, and our volunteers, and the restaurants and the hotels that help feed our volunteers, and the public that comes down, that donates food and toys to Salvation Army. It's part of the community. It's part of the state. It's part of the region now. It just isn't reaching Duluth. We're talking 3-4 state area on a regular basis. People coming from the Dakotas, Upper Peninsula, Michigan, Iowa. We hear those people coming every night. So we're hoping they're still going to come to Duluth and take in the drive-through experience.
So Renee's question kind of answered this too, I think. But is there going to be opportunity for somebody, whether through the golden tickets or not, to walk in, go into the tree, or is that a thing?
That has not been decided yet either. We're concerned about opening a can of worms, so to speak. We're still discussing whether or not engagements or weddings could take place in there. We're still discussing some of those things. Like I said, we don't have all the details worked out. We're more on the bigger level picture here. We've still got a month or so before we have to make some final decisions on little details, and that would be what we would consider a little detail. Yeah.
How many volunteers do you guys have in a typical year, and what do you think it will look like this year? It sounds like you're considering trying to maybe scale it down a little bit so that you can maintain the social distancing, but can you tell us what you typically would have in the way of volunteers and what this year might look like?
Well, on a typical Saturday, we would probably see, Tim, you correct me if I'm wrong, right around 70 volunteers maybe? 60 to 70 volunteers. The reason we're thinking we don't necessarily need as many volunteers this year is some of the things we will not actually be doing that takes a lot of time. For instance, when the cookie house would be here, which will not be here, we have tunnels stretched on both sides here. There won't be any tunnels in the middle of the park because the cars won't be driving through. We're still going to decorate the lights and everything, so when you're from a distance, it's still going to light up. But some of the very time-consuming things to build Bentleyville might not necessarily have to take place this year. We're actually only going to be putting up 2 tunnels. One tunnel will be from the coming in from the deck, and then the other tunnel will be along Pier B. And a lot of those is all because of logistics of where we can build it based on whether there's a fence or there's rocks or it's unlevel turf, because we need to obviously make it wide enough. So there's only 2 practical areas for us to actually put tunnels wide enough for the traffic.
Will people need to make reservations, or is it kind of first come, first served?
That's also a little detail that's being discussed. We are looking at whether or not it's feasible to have a reservation online. There's a real difference in opinions within our board and our operations on how that would actually work with having so many people from so far away knowing that they should have had a reservation when they get here, and us upsetting people that come here and spend hundreds or thousands of dollars here in Duluth, and we don't really want to be the Grinch that says, sorry, you didn't make a reservation. So we're still tangling around with that on how we can make that happen. Maybe it won't happen at all, maybe partial happen, where my assistant Tim Rajantini is looking into some software in various versions. So that's been discussed. It is being discussed, but we don't have the answers yet.
Are you guys watching, I guess, local COVID numbers at all?
I watch COVID numbers every day. My phone goes off at 11:11 every day from the state of Minnesota.
And I guess with their contingency plan on the, I guess, unfortunate chance that things get worse in the region, would you perhaps change this plan?
We will change whatever, if we have to change, we're 100% cooperative with whatever the state would say or the city of Duluth would say. We feel, though, with everybody staying in their cars and limited number of people even interacting, we really feel this is one of the safest places you could probably, for any event. Again, people will not be allowed to get out of their cars at this time, and it's going to be limited to whether it's handing somebody a hat on a stick or the gloves and the mask and everything on, with the window down, rolled down this much for 4 to 6 seconds. So we feel we're pretty good about that.
I know you've got a lot planned around, but you still have some surprises that are going to include this, and you always try to add new things, aside from the road. Do you have new things people can afford?
Oh, there are. But at this time, as we're still working through some of our last-minute display ideas and things like that, some things might not happen, so I'm not even going to tease it out there because we're still in the midst of, will stuff show up on time?
Any other questions? Guys, I know it's a busy day today. I have a question. Can you speak on how optimistic you are about how this event will be a boost for economy one at that Bentleyville is such a nationally known event?
Well, at this point, I think it's too early to tell, but if every indication to us would be the interest that we see with calls and emails to our office, that this points to being a much more successful event than we probably would have thought of even just a month ago. And again, not knowing what the next few weeks and months hold in store, just being able to plan and prepare and, again, create that awareness out there is going to generate, I think, a pretty significant response. What that really ends up looking like and what the final tally is, it's really going to be something that we will know going into it, but our hope is that it spurs this activity over the 40 days and evenings of a time of year when we really see a need for it, even in a non-COVID year, where it is generating activity within our local community and getting residents out and about and active, as well as bringing people in who probably otherwise didn't have a reason to come here. So for us to say that it's going to bolster our economy is a pretty safe bet.
We're actually taking a very large gamble this year because over all the years that we've had, we have history that we have a pretty good idea of how much money is going to come in through our parking lot, through our donation boxes, generally what our store will generate, and our sponsors and our candy bar sale. Right now we're in the middle of absolutely the unknown, so we're gambling with a lot, but we're willing to take that gamble and give back to the community. So we're hoping that our sponsors are still going to step forward. Some of them we've already spoken with, but again, even some of our largest sponsors have said, we're going to sponsor you, but not at the same level. And that's where the financial, we need to be responsible because we want to be here next year. So that's where we're at on the financial end of things. We need to be viable and be here next year for everybody because we want to have that walkthrough. We want to have that free walkthrough.
To say this is a one-of-a-kind experience and
That's right.
a one-time experience. So
absolutely.
Experience it while you can because this is it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Bentleyville.
Thank you, Anna Tansky, Visit Duluth.